Yo, why is my healer on beam? And he's dead. Well, welcome to Albion. Now, before we begin, there's a couple things you need to know beforehand. First, this guide assumes you can push buttons. Most of you should be able to figure that out in general, but not pushing your buttons for an entire rotation completely negates the point of this whole guide. Next, it helps a lot if you have any MOBA-like game experience, whether it's League, Dota, or even games like Overwatch and Returnal Return. Personally, I would describe 5v5 as a mix of Overwatch and League. It's fine if you don't, but at its core, Albion requires relatively high levels of team play at the base competitive level, which I'll get into now. Starting with compositions, there are three main types of Albion compositions. This includes Standard, Dive, and One Shot. You can distinguish this by looking at the weapons the DPS are using, where in Standard, often 2 RDPS and 1 melee DPS is included, and for Dive and One Shot, 3 of each melee DPS are included. Each of these compositions will have a general play style that they're working towards. For Standard, which is what you're watching, you generally look to build pressure by using nearly all your offensive abilities, and when possible, combo into a kill. This entails hitting frontline until you can hit backline, making the namesake play front to back. At the same time, this doesn't mean pressure shouldn't be applied to the enemy backline, and this is notably apparent for the frontline of your team. Specifically, your carrion can chop frontline for value and then walk into backline to pressure an RDPS player. Your tank can also CC backline instead of frontline in order to deny healing, and then when frontline is looking to get healed, they can use anti-heal. Although I'd like to cover more, this should give a general overview of what this playstyle is looking for. If you're interested in more in-depth guides like this, please hit the like button and comment on what you'd like to see. This guide should have multiple parts, so stay tuned. For Dive, your goal is to, well, dive. The idea behind it is you have tools to walk in and or hold backliners in the front, so they have an opportunity to die fairly quickly. Big thanks to Quasars for allowing me to use this footage. If you haven't noticed yet, most melees are playing plate, specifically royal armor, to sustain mana. For Dive, we'll be having at least one leather player in order to have enough damage to kill. You're generally going to look for an opportunity on a clothy, but at the same time, you can still kill the frontline if you've brought them out enough. Lastly, for One Shot, you're going to be, well, one-shotting. This includes frontline and backline. Your main method of killing is generally going to be knockups, but you also have tools in place like Harpoon, Triple Kick, and Robe of Purity to force a kidnap. The main difference between Dive and One Shot is that you're able to kill the frontline fairly easily, and are generally looking for anyone out of position. On top of this, if you need some extra damage, you can always switch to brawly spells, such as Devastating Combo on gloves. Biggest thing to keep in mind in One Shot is that knockups do not allow you to do anything. Merc Shoes, Res Pot, Gig Pot, anything at all. Big thanks once again to Quasars, although I probably should have asked him beforehand. As a final note for players trying to get into One Shot, you are generally going to immediately kite after hitting. Most of the time, there is no point in staying in. That'll be it for this video. Ask any questions you have in the comments.